Hi, my name is Greg Canty, and I'd like to welcome you to the Win Happy podcast. I love chatting to people from all walks of life about their lives and their careers, about the choices they make along the way to pursue their happiness, and what winning actually means to them. I hope you enjoy these conversations as much as I do. Thanks for listening. At the beginning of the summer, I sat down with Dar O'Sullivan and his wife Linda Kennedy as they were gearing up for another, hopefully busy season at O'Sullivan's Bar and Nottage's Bar and Restaurant. Dar and Linda are the next generation who took over the business from his parents Billy and Angela, who took over from his parents Sonny and Elizabeth. This special business is a little piece of paradise in a West Cork village by the sea called Crookhaven, where you can enjoy the most southerly pint in Ireland and wholesome food 364 days a year. Dar and Linda spoke about how they first met, the challenge of hiring a brand new team each summer, coping with the off-season, and the magic of the place that keeps bringing people back. Let's hear from Dar and Linda. Dar and Linda, how are you doing?
Great.
Good, thanks.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, how are you feeling? The season is about to kick off. You're telling me that you have 8 staff arriving?
Yeah, no, good. I have to say,
8 staff arriving on top of about 20 odd already here and going up to 40 odd in July and August.
Like, holy shit, running a business.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Are these unknown to you? Are they returners?
Quite a few returnees.
Yeah, about 30-40% are returners. So they could be students or they could be professional people who are quite happy working 6 months a year as opposed to 12. And then we got, actually you'll love this, Greg, it's the opposite to media. I love the older person working here. They're brilliant. Do you know the way you see a lot of media professionals getting paid off in their 40s and stuff because they get to be too expensive and we're not wearing trendy runners to work anymore and the like. It's the opposite here. We love people who it's more seasoned.
Well, certainly if they don't need their hands held all the time, and if you explain something to them once, that's all it needs, as opposed to 3 or 4 times, which can be the case when you have younger people.
I know, the mixture is good crack.
Oh, there's no doubt.
We have everybody who's, I think the oldest is 59, and the youngest at the moment, my godson, is 16, is there. So it's a good spread.
It's a good summer job, especially if we're lucky enough to have the good weather that we will have.
Yeah.
They have access to bicycles and kayaks and spins in the boat and obviously summer party life and that kind of thing as well if they want.
Yeah. And that dynamic with older and younger must be really nice.
It's good. It is actually. It's really good. And one of the things we do, you remember when I was living in Cork that I played rugby with Ballincollig
300 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. Not that long ago, sadly. But we do something at the end of the summer called Players Player, whereby because we've here, the shop, the restaurant, Nottage's Bar, each team can nominate their favourite colleague and they get extra money. So let's say if the season goes well, there's a summer bonus. They'll get other awards from being really good, top banana, most improved, and then there's a whole heap of Players Player. And the idea then is that you're voting for somebody, not a popularity kind of competition, but they've got to make they're friendly, they help you, and you love working with them. Do you know what I mean? And they know what they're doing. So surprisingly, with the young people, I remember the last couple of years in the kitchen, they always go for the older people working with them. Do you know what I mean? Because, I don't know, they make their lives less stressful or something. That they're calming, and they do look after them, Yeah. But it's great crack. We do all sorts of stupid things at the end of the summer, in terms of skill tests to see who is the overall top banana. With 45 of us, it's good, and we invite our trades as well because we cannot keep the place open without our sparks and our plumber and the like. So
after putting that into perspective, you're talking about 45 people in your team.
Yeah.
And it's like 37 people living in Crookhaven.
Well,
I know.
Around about the 45 mark as well.
Yeah.
It is an interesting perspective, certainly, and the fact that we actually have to find beds for about 25 of them.
Yeah.
A bit more difficult having 2 caravans in my dad's garden and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. But maybe it's a touch easier than finding accommodation for people in Cork City, I'm guessing.
I don't know. It's very tricky, and it's like Tetris, because let's say if you've maybe 60% people coming, they don't know each other. Will such and such share a dorm or a bedroom with this person? Would that be fair? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, or if I hire that person with their sister, they don't mind sharing a bedroom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the combinations is like Tetris every year. Who is going to share with who happily?
So it's may not necessarily be the best person every single time you're fitting people together.
For sure. And I mean, there's been lads, and I say lads specifically, they are like my favourite people to work with, but they're totally feral. Feral 20-year-old who, and you open the dorm room and it's just socks, and I'm like, lads, I actually can't live with you. Clean the bathroom, clean your bedroom. It's, because they're still 19, 20,
Yeah.
And the mothers usually look after them and clean up after them.
And for a lot of them, it's a first job.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Away from home.
Yeah.
So you're nearly babysitters and minders as much as employers.
Sometimes.
And 20 years ago, well, more now, obviously, 20, 30 years ago, a lot of the summer staff were friends of mine from school or cousins of mine.
Yeah.
And nearly always, without fail, either some relative or friends of the family.
That's right.
And it's changed, and obviously, because we have far more staff now, an awful lot of them we've never met before, which is just slightly different.
It is. Unlike me, I was the first stranger that your mum ever hired.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. So no, genuinely I was.
Yeah. We heard about that interview
that's true.
in the last podcast.
Yeah.
So we're joining the two podcasts together now, and on episode 292, I spoke to your dad, Billy, and he gave us all of the history of O'Sullivan's Bar in Crookhaven and how it changed down through the years and everything else. And what I thought was interesting was there was couple stories every spot along the way. Yeah. And I suppose in a way those stories, some of them were quite natural and quite logical and everything else, but yours is slightly different to those ones.
Yeah, definitely. We were friends for how many years, Dur?
I suppose
25 or so.
You arrived on the scene.
Yeah, he was always going out with somebody and I was always single. You were all if you could see a face on that, it would be a very dark cloud over it.
Thankfully I have a face for radio.
But he was always going out with somebody. I worked here for Bill and Ange in the early 90s. So there's a reference from Ange that Dad found and gave it to me when I got married.
From 94
or something. And Dur and I went off to work, was in New York and London, and then came back to Dublin and was working for now defunct McCann Erickson and an advertising agency.
Yeah, one of the powerhouses in that industry.
Yeah, and I was young, we were all young. It was unusual actually, it was a team of females, and we were the media arm of it, Universal McCann, so we used to run TV campaigns, that was my area. And I was very young doing it. I think I came home about 27, 28, and I was working 80, 90-hour weeks. And it was far more different than here, in that the stress you take home with you. You finish a shift here and you tend to forget about it. Most of the time we don't, but hopefully the lads do. Do you know what I mean? Bad service, if you have bad service, forget about it, move on. Tomorrow's another day. Do you know?
Another gig.
Very much so. And I came down in 2002, and I remember I had been knocked down by a car that day. It was for Lana McCarthy's 40th birthday party, and Dur turned around to me and said, "God, Lynn, you look awful." And I was skinny. I used to smoke.
Compliments above.
Yeah. Well, I remembered her because I did probably look awful. I was working hard and I was smoking too much in those days. And I used to have a desk just off Bagot Street in Dublin, and I used to smoke out the window at work rather than go outside and have a cigarette. And I looked wrecked, and I just remember Dur saying, "Why don't you come down here and work with me? I need a right-hand man." Because at that stage you were bartending on your own and Ange was part-time. And I rang him on Monday when my boss did something kind of poor and I was there at 9 o'clock at night and whatever he handed to me was another 2 hours at work. And I thought, I don't really want this that bad. I don't care about the money. I'd rather have a work-life balance. So I rang George to say, was he serious about the job offer? He said, come on away. And came down for 2 years. And then I was ready to go back into media.
Was it 2 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
2002, 2003.
So just jumping off the rat race for a while, was it?
Yeah. And then actually I decided to go back into media in Cork. But we became firm friends because I had been working for his parents and knew this kind of man who used to come back from Paris and that.
Ooh la la.
Yeah, you did.
But also we had a definite connection because we both went to boarding school and both joke about wanting to be Protestants when we grow up. And,
it's really true.
And the boarding school connection is, even though we went to fierce rival schools, is certainly
big rivals.
Certainly a connection.
And sport, like we loved the same sports. We went to rival schools. We got on great together. And I mean, I remember when we were working together for that 2 years, like Dara was happily married, and as we were such great friends, and I was great friends with Alison as well.
Oh yeah.
I think the village were very perplexed. You know, what the hell is she doing here? And then I went back to
And it wouldn't
work.
be a place to gossip or anything, would it?
I'm so not interested in that. But anyway, it totally is. But
what else would they be doing here?
Yeah. And then
all 37 of them.
That's right. So then years passed and you were single for the first time and I was, as usual, single. And I don't know, I came down on a visit and it took you a good 8 months. I remember I was working in UTV in Dublin at the time, and I remember going out for a drink with a buddy of mine. I said, God, I'm mad about Dur. And I remember that was very unlike me to admit it. Off I went after a couple of drinks home, and I was like, gosh, I really like him now. But it took you another 6 months because we were friends for 20 odd years at that point.
Did you twig it? How was your antenna?
Oh God, no.
It was fairly broken from the sounds of it.
No, I was trying hard at that stage, and she was trying to play hard to get, I think. But eventually, anyway.
That's harsh.
Eventually, just above your house, funnily enough, we were walking across the land on... Lynn and her friends used to come down on St. Patrick's Day and kind of revived our St. Patrick's Day parade. Because Kevin and Tess, back in the day, Kevin from Cork and Tess from Dublin had moved down here. And they started our St. Patrick's Day parades, which have become hugely successful. But Lynn and her buddies revived them a bit and put a bit more energy into them. And we were walking up there with her buddies, just above your house where there's a couple of almonds, which is a super place to walk. And I remember I fell into a hole.
In a pair of pink shorts.
And I think she felt sorry for me then.
No, it was a pink t-shirt, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, kept that t-shirt for posterity for a long time. But made it into a duster.
But when she decided to eventually move down and wanted to start putting manners on because I'd been trying to run the place on my own for a good while, and it's not a job you can do on your own anymore. And also, things were moving so rapidly. Yeah. Everything, like your billing and everything else, were moving online, which I have a problem with because we're so geographically challenged.
Oh, yeah. Great, thanks.
That you need reps to come down and look at you over the counter. Saying, will you do your order online and stuff? I don't like that. Obviously, it's effective and it works, but you still need to see people. They have to realise how geographically challenged we are. And I prefer if people come down if they're trying to sell their wares to us and sit and have a cup of coffee. Then wouldn't you do your order online? Where you see nobody, you're just interfacing with the computer, which defeats the purpose, especially in our business where you have to talk to your customers. So Linda came down and sort of...
Sorry, you're washing over the unplanned middle-aged pregnancy.
Well, I'm sure that was
we might just get to that.
But that wasn't the only reason you came down. But we get great service from our suppliers. Having to be forced to do everything online was a big problem for me, still is. The notion of it, obviously with Linda being far more adept at modern practices, she managed to put manners on me and the business in a huge way.
It's funny, I came from the drinks industry.
Yeah.
And our Bible was call every week.
Well, it was, but was is the important word there.
The amazing thing, you come in the door
Yeah.
And of course, unless you're blind, you spot the competitive products, on tap. You spot the things on shelf.
Yeah.
You know what's going on. You can have a conversation. There's intelligence to it.
Yeah.
And even at my time with Guinness, all of the work study people were coming in and.
Did you say we're with the Guinness?
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord!
Yeah.
You never thought, and we're still friends with you.
Well, it was Guinness and it was Heineken and GC's and Nash Beverages, and I did the whole rooms.
Yeah.
But that was the Bible. You developed a relationship for a rep to lose out on an account. And they had no idea what was going on there. It was like a mortal sin. If you know your customer, Jesus Almighty, how did you not know this was going on? Did you not sense anything, whatever?
Yeah.
But of course, all the efficiency guys, she can do all of that. And before you know it, there's competitor taps and everything else. But anyway.
The way they monitor people's sales calls has changed, but I still think people do buy to a degree from relationships. I think people are under time pressure. So, but funny, if the rep is good, I'll make time for them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I'm terrible, I have to admit. If I don't think they're good at their job, I'm not dismissive, but I make myself unavailable for sure.
Of course you do. You don't want a rep burning your time.
Yeah.
If they can bring you a little bit of value, that's really
just,
really cool.
Honestly, if they're a nice person who are trying to help you out.
And helpful,
that goes a long way still, I think,
This is a relationship business. Obviously, people are returning over and over at times of the year.
100%.
There isn't a sinner.
Yeah.
Like when I was talking to your dad a few months ago, and now, of course, you've got all the familiar faces returning again for the season. Pretty much know everyone. I know you've got the visitors who come and you probably will never see them again, but so many of them you actually do know, don't you?
Sure, we do know, and sadly it changed for a small bit for me during COVID, during one of those restrictions where you had to take people's names. Because I know people who've been coming to the caravan site for 30 years, and I still don't know their names.
Yeah.
And I would happily know that he drinks a pint of Murphy's, and she has a gin and tonic, or gin and slimline tonic, and he's got a beard, and you know them. So, yeah, man with the gin.
Smithwick's and a gin and tonic.
But never would actually know their names, because you wouldn't have any need to. As opposed to if you're in a restaurant where they booked under Mr. and Mrs. Toomey. But during COVID, that helped a lot, so you did actually get to know Bernard and Grania. But the mad thing is, our business, be it here or the shop or the restaurant, you're talking to your customers face to face. And the idea that reps don't bother anymore, just say, well, you do it online, is a terrible shame. No, we do get brilliant service.
Our reps are brilliant.
But we do get brilliant service from a delivery point of view, considering how far away we are from anything, which is great. But I still think that, I'm not saying the internet won't catch on or anything, but I still think they need to send a person down who is a rep. The rep is a company representative. And just having an online presence isn't really good enough in our business, I don't think. Sorry, I'm digressing from the historical chat.
Your dad told me about the speech you gave at your mum's funeral.
Oh.
And that had the whole congregation in raptures, I believe.
Well, no. The bit that bothered him and other people found amusing was that in 1967, when he arrived down here, his wife, just about wife, she was English and Protestant and pregnant. And nobody knew which was worse.
Well, not.
But in fact, she came down to a village of about 75 people at that stage, maybe a few more than that. And obviously at 21, very unsure of... They were living in a caravan while they were building the house that we lived in for a while. And she always said how, she got an amazing amount of support from locals. A few of them who she wouldn't have expected it from. But she did end up fitting in amazingly. And
she was great. Great.
And sadly died far too soon.
Very
at
much.
66.
And Angela never got to see her grandmother. And we always talk about what
would she think?
What would she think? Because I was great friends with his mum. Do you know?
And it's lovely that you have that connection.
Yeah. And I just thought, would she have been sad? Or we talk about it all the time. What would she have made out?
How old were you when she passed?
It's only 12 years ago.
13.
Okay. 13 years ago this year, yeah.
And growing up, in a family business, that's all hands on deck. Was that something you liked growing up, or was that something you hated?
No. It's hard to know if you liked it or not. It was life. There was no. I didn't know anything else. I always claim. I think I poured my first pint when I was 4, because I distinctly remember standing on a crate to be able to reach the Murphy's tap. But our life was. We lived upstairs from about the age when my grandfather died. We moved down here, My grandmother was still alive. So it was part of your life all the time. You know, we ate just in what's now our kind of commercial kitchen. So you could sit down, but you had to keep an ear in case somebody wanted another drink. And at that stage, we had 6 or 8 locals, some of whom were in every single day. If you turned on the lights early because you were going to Cork at 7 o'clock in the morning, there'd be at least 2 who'd come in not for coffee. And often the same guys would be the last to leave. Like Goggin especially, trying to throw a bucket of coal on the fire at 11:30 at night, which he was famous for. So it was so different than what it is now, even though now we live upstairs and Ange comes down and or at least enjoys the bar.
The youngest, she's 6.
The people.
Yeah.
But the thing was, I never had, like people say, oh, didn't you ever go to such and such a concert? I never went anywhere from, I suppose, the age of 12 to whenever I left home. Because every school holiday or every holiday period you had to work.
That was peak season.
And enjoyed it. But also, loads of my friends came and stayed here and worked and really enjoyed it. So, without a doubt, enjoyed it. But didn't know any different.
That was great crack. I mean, it really was great crack working here. But we worked hard. I mean, we did work probably 60 hours
no
a
doubt.
week we were young, you know.
And during the adventure away to Paris and everything else, was it your intention never to work here?
Not at all. Complete fluke. When I left school, not as many as now, but certainly I suppose a third were going to college and others were going to Dublin or London or New York or leaving anyway. And funnily enough, it was just over a conversation with very good friends of my parents and they were asking me what I was doing after school and I wasn't sure and they said, well listen, if you want to come and stay in Paris for 6 months with us, you're more than welcome. And just couldn't refuse the offer because for a start they were such lovely people. But it ended up being a great choice because I got to live in Paris with this lovely family, got to learn French, which for us in our bar is very important. Both my parents spoke French, and we have lots of French customers who don't speak much English. And there's been a connection with Brittany and Crookhaven since the early 60s. There was a fish ponds over here, owned by 2 French brothers, and my grandfather, one of the first kind of managers of it, and my dad worked there, as did nearly a dozen people in the village. So we've always had a French connection and it's great to be able to speak French. But thankfully that came from total immersion by living with these people. And then I went back subsequently and worked in an Irish bar, one of the first ones, and worked in sports shops and did several different jobs. But it was a great move and I loved every minute of it. But there was, being an only child, people assumed there was pressure to come home and work here. There was no pressure. No. I think if I'd become a doctor or a pilot or something, it would have been a shame because it wouldn't have, well, I'm not sure how it would have carried on. But I never felt any pressure from my parents. But there was also the safety net. Having never found a vocation in France, I always kind of wanted to come home. Funny, when I was in Paris, other nationalities had left their country mostly because they didn't like it and wanted to live somewhere else. The vast majority of Irish people had left home because they needed to, but were always yearning to go home, and most eventually did, certainly all my friends.
Out of the 3 of us, we were all shoved away, you know, and I always, like you, Ger, I always wanted to come home. There was never a question of me staying in big cities abroad, even though the work was amazing. For me anyway, the work was always more interesting abroad, but I just wanted to come home, no question about it. Didn't think I'd end up down here though.
No, I have 3 daughters and it looks like this, after this summer, the elder 2 will be leaving for at least a year. And obviously I'm not worried about it, but I'm anxious about it. But I do know that when you live in somewhere so small, you have to leave. Even if it's only to Dublin or...
Yeah.
It's inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's important, actually.
I'm hoping in their cases that they're leaving to come back eventually. But you have to leave. You have to broaden your horizons and see other stuff. You know, we're so lucky. And they're at an age where they do appreciate how lucky we are to live here. And I think that's only going to be more pronounced in years to come.
Yeah.
We're really going to miss them.
But I'm anxious about it.
Christmas, I can't quite picture Christmas without them.
It's a big price, isn't it, when
Yeah.
your own kind have to disappear for whatever reason, whether they want to or it's circumstances.
Yeah.
I hope, but I think it's a positive thing. You have to see what it's like outside of our little bubble down here.
And Coral, when she was telling us, she was more upset than we were. Both of us having done it ourselves, we're like, it's brilliant news. She's off to Shanghai.
Shanghai for a year.
And tell me your own two girls. Where did they go to secondary school?
They went to school, both of them, and liked it. We had thought about sending them to boarding school because I love boarding school so much, but I didn't have the opportunity of school. Because when I was secondary school age, it was Skibbereen. So there was a 6:30 bus from here, and you changed in Skull, and you didn't get home till evening as well. So I think I've only realised it recently that my parents more than likely sent me to boarding school as well, so they could go off on their long holidays.
Yeah.
Because it was proper boarding school. You didn't come home for a few months, And in fairness, my mother had done a good bit of research and had friends who'd been to Middleton and Bandon and Newtown, and we thankfully chose Middleton. And I was there for 9 years, went there when I was 10 and loved every minute of it. A very small, inconvenient bit is when you come home, having been away for that, and also in Paris for a long time, a lot of your peers got married and are kids and stuff, and you don't really know, you don't get the connections that you would have done had you stayed home all the time. You don't know that Johnny's married to PJ's niece or...
No, but you just went to a school reunion. Like, you're in your 50s, and there were loads of them.
Oh, yeah.
All the ex-girlfriends.
No, but when you're in a small parish and you don't really know the connections that you should know had you been here, sometimes it's a bit
That
difficult.
relationship you have with people in a place like this where it's small must be super intense. I'm talking a lad in Cork City living in the suburbs, you've got your big neighbourhoods and everything else. But here, it's something else, isn't it?
Sure, but all my kids really, in the village, there was nobody my age. Dennis next door, who was 4 years older than me, was my closest friend for all of national school. And then obviously he went to secondary school earlier than me. But I went soon afterwards because I left when I was 10,
Was he the closest and the only available?
No, there were others. Richard Nutter, the fisherman, he's exactly the same age as me, but he wasn't really allowed out much. Especially in the summer when there were so many other people around. So most of my close friends growing up were summer kids. Came for not just summer holidays, but came most holidays.
Yeah.
And are still all still very good friends.
You lived like the famous five, though. I mean, he went everywhere with his dog. They went camping on Granny Island.
You
know that kind of stuff. They did.
But we did what
adventures.
Other 13, 14, 15-year-olds didn't do was work nearly every day during the summer as well.
Yeah. That's very true. With baths and that.
Oh yeah, sorting bottles and stocking shelves and collecting glasses all the time from earlier than that, from 11, 12, I suppose.
So at what point were you all in? Sullivan's, Crookhaven, back again?
Well, when I came home to here.
How old were you?
I came home from Paris, 23.
What year?
92 or so.
No.
25 maybe.
No, because I was gone. My last summer here was 95 before I came back to work with you in 2002. So somewhere in between there.
I should know.
Did you have any inclination that you'd be back here?
Not.
You always had
the family, if you talk to my mum or dad or my sister or brother, they say that I always felt it was my spiritual home. And I knew it was important because I kept coming back. I mean, I really kept coming back. If I was in, there were definitely periods, a couple of rough patches, like 2008, 2002, that were through work rough patches. And in both periods, I kind of came down here for a bit of levelling off, and it did work.
But quite a few of my friends who have no other connection with here except friendship with us have tended to come back here often and still do, like Baz or a lot of my other friends would have the same feeling about the place, Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's great. And I think the fact that you work late, I don't anymore. I can't do late nights anymore. But the hours and the time you put in here, and then you counterpart, then you have your adventures at the same time. So many adventures, like even just this week, taking all our workaways out, and there's been so many whale sharks. Basking sharks, the top of the harbour, and dolphins, load of wildlife action. And that they leave the place like we did, They just couldn't get over it, could they? We'd about 5 nationalities.
Amazing the amount of wildlife we have on our doorstep, really, and for them to see it all, and dolphins doing an acrobatic show for them was fantastic. Fantastic.
What made it your spiritual home?
My mother would have been important in it.
She absolutely was. I mean,
when you maintained, she taught you how to cook and stuff.
She did, and and I think she quite liked me for stupid stuff. I mean, I know the Mannies are always pulling my leg about going disappearing when I was in service to, I don't know, fold laundry or something. Anything but be a bit idle if it wasn't very busy. But I remember, painting ceilings in here, and she did teach me how to cook, even though Billy maintains I still don't know how to cook. Well, no, he won't forgive a roast beef incident for years ago. But anyway, I just remember I really remember being in Henny Griffin's car, the back of the Beetle, when I came, because you used to have to hitch from Skull. And I was on the final leg coming into the village, and people had given me connecting lifts to make sure I made it for the June bank holiday. So yeah, it must be coming up for
an anniversary.
Yeah, it is actually coming up to. It was literally this time in 1992, and it was on the final leg, and the tide was in, and it was sunny, and it was quite windy. But you know how beautiful the water is. It was turquoise, and it was whipping on the white sand in Cocklestrand. I really remember being in the back. Couldn't understand Hanny at all. And straight, I'm from Limerick originally, and just thinking, I can't believe I'm here all summer. And she's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And what about the winter?
Love it. I know, I really do, because we need it. We need the winter. And we've continued Angela's and Billy's tradition of going on winter adventures. So, we look at the map and we kind of decide where we can go for 3 or 4 weeks, because we're on 7 days. We're open every day except Christmas Day.
Yeah,
and we're still on for Christmas Day,
But the difference is, since COVID, and certainly since my time when I was a teenager here, the down times aren't that quiet anymore. It's not like it used to be, where really there were 2 people and a dog until June, I suppose. It has become much busier off season for loads of reasons. Europeans travel more off season because the roads are quieter and they can probably see more. And they know that they can get the weather just as good in March as you can in July, But also, there are far more day trippers who come for food. Food has transformed the small pub business, but certainly from our point of view. And back in the day when my parents used to go on holidays, Rose or Susan Barry used to be in charge, and that was it. Maybe they'd have help at a weekend. That was it. Now, when we go on holidays, we've got about 6 people here. And even in the winter, we probably have 2 or 3 full-time and 2 or 3 part-time. And before, it was just family and maybe 1 person. It's really changed a lot.
But the lads are brilliant.
No doubt. But it's just changed that much,
One of the things we find fantastic when we're away is, I know some of my friends in the business, and they're constantly irritated by Google reviews, but I tend to try and always respond to them, even if they're bad, Thankfully, they're rare, but when we're on holidays, I kind of go, well done, lads. We would do a screen grab saying, when we're not there and the lads are doing well and getting good reviews when we're not there. I mean, God, isn't that just a brilliant testament to our team?
Thank you for listening to the Win Happy podcast, which has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. If you would like to get in touch, feel free to send me an email at greg@fusion.ie. So until next time, take it easy.